Good morning, everyone. Good morning. If everyone would please take their seats, I'd like to call the meeting to order. This morning is October 6, 2020. The time is 9:30 a.m., and this is the meeting of the Lee County Board of County Commissioners. Let's begin this morning with our invocation. Before we ask Commissioner Sandelli to say the prayer, I'd like for all of us to please rise and take a moment of silence for Carl Schwing. He's a former Bonita Springs city manager, former Cape Coral assistant city manager, and a friend who passed away recently. So let's take a moment of silence. Thank you very much. Commissioner Sandelli, will you please lead us in the invocation?
Good morning. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we ask that you look over and guide us in these challenging times. Give each one of us the guidance and strength to see the best in each other so that we may be stronger and more united as a community and as a nation. Please keep our first responders, our dedicated healthcare professionals, our teachers, and all those who serve others in so many ways in your embrace. We ask your blessing as we go forward in this new day and every day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. All right. And we have no ceremonial items this morning. Oh, Commissioner Pendergrass, you do have one ceremonial item, so you are recognized, Commissioner Pendergrass.
Great, thank you. If I could have the AmeriCorps members come forward this morning. We have Brenda Tate, Julia Lanos, and Sonia Concepcion-Jones. If you please come to the podium here. Thank you for coming down this morning. If you could go to the podium, I'll read the resolution to the record. Then after that, we'll ask you for a couple words. We'll take a picture after that. This time, I'd like to read the resolution of record. Whereas AmeriCorps members are making a powerful impact on the most critical issues facing our nation. And whereas American Corps near peer coaching for post-secondary success, sponsored by Earn to Learn Florida and Volunteer Florida, addresses the most pressing challenges of educating students for jobs of the 21st century. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable communities, providing experience, career skills, college scholarships for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps members sponsored by Earn to Learn Florida, Volunteer Florida, to serve in more than 10 sites in Lee, Collier, Charlotte, and Hendry County, boasting the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. Whereas now there be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Lee County, Florida, does hereby proclaim September 15, 2020 as AmeriCorps Florida National Peer Coaching Post-Secondary Success Day. Encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of AmeriCorps members in our country, thank those who serve, and find ways to give back to the community. Duly executed by Chairman Commissioner Hammond. Sorry it took a few weeks to get you down here, but thanks for coming.
Thank you all. Congratulations. Would you come take a picture?
Thank you for coming down.
And then after the picture, one of you could say a few words from the podium. That would be great.
Could y'all stand 6 feet apart? Take your mask off then, so you could show all your beauty.
It's a weird world. We understand.
Yes.
All right. Good morning.
I got it. Yeah.
Good deal. Thank you all.
Who are your spokesperson? If you could go to the podium and say a few words.
I will. Good morning, Commissioners. And I just want to say thank you from all of us at Earn to Learn Florida, a Lee County-based organization, for recognizing the value that this summer, against all odds, we've created 40 new jobs. So our AmeriCorps members will be working for 1 year. They receive a living wage, a stipend, and they will also be working to advance their own education by earning a scholarship at the end of their service. So we're excited they'll be serving deserving, income-challenged high school students and first-generation and college students over the next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming today. And you all have a great morning. Thank you. All right, Commissioner Pendergrass, thank you for that presentation. I see no other ceremonial presentations, so let's move to the recap. This is the time when we talk about any additions or deletions to the agenda. I have nothing to be deferred, no revisions and corrections, no items to be pulled for discussion, and we do have one walk-on that we've added to the agenda that we'll get to towards the end there after public hearings, and it is to authorize additional LeeCARES programs and actions for COVID-19 response. At this time, Commissioner Mann, do you have anything you'd like to pull from the consent agenda?
Not, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Manning?
I do not.
I have nothing. Commissioner Pendergrass?
No items.
Commissioner Sandelli? All right, so no items have been pulled from the consent agenda. At this time, I'd like to call for public comment on any of the items on our consent agenda. That would be items 1 through 20. Is anybody here to speak? I see Matt Godwin to speak on item number 6. Mr. Godwin, would you like to take... Goodwin, I apologize.
I don't have a copy. Can I take this down?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I don't have a copy of the...
Go ahead and start the
have it,
timer,
but
please, real
I
quick.
know what I'm here for.
There you go.
So there was a sale of public lands in a residential neighborhood where there was a lot behind, like a small portion behind the home that my client owns, and it was sold at a private sale. Well, the statute that enables this, 125.35, says that really the threshold is, once it's determined that the proper method is used, is the highest and best use of the property. And if there's two adjacent property owners, they do this private sale. Well, the private sale took place, and they sold it to the neighbor who bid $100 more than my client who owns the home that's in the front of this property, of the publicly owned lot. So if you look at the map of this residential neighborhood, there's probably 2 or 3 in a, I don't know how far the radius goes, probably to an extensive amount, it's not too far from the water, that has this small strip of land owned by the county still behind the home. Now, I don't know what the history was and how many of these lots have been sold like this, but they sold it to the neighbor, and instead of my client now having a backyard, which seemed to be the highest and best use for this lot, they now have, they step out and they're on their neighbor's property. So it's really, when I looked at it, they asked me to come to talk about this, and it seemed absurd that it even happened. So what the county's supposed to do is look at if there's 2 competing interests in the adjacent property owners that may have a good use of it. The discretion is based on the highest and best use threshold, which I don't think was used here. I think it was just a sealed bid. They said, oh, this one's for $5,000, this one's for $5,100. Now they no longer have a backyard because of this possible oversight. I don't believe this process is so cut and dry that it should have been handled the way it was. And I don't know what your process is to make it go away, to reverse it.
Mr. Goodwin, I'll as the chairman, I'll go ahead and pull the item for discussion, and then we'll move on through the rest of the consent agenda. We'll talk about it immediately following the consent agenda. It's item number 6, Mr. County Manager, so if you want to check into that. Thank you for your comments. Does that conclude your comments?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, sir, very much. Any further comments on any of the consent agenda items number 1 through 20 on our agenda then? Okay, seeing none. So I'll pull number 6 for discussion. So the motion for approval is everything on the consent agenda except for item number 6.
So moved.
So the motion for approval is from Commissioner Pendergrass. The second is from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any further discussion on the consent agenda items? Okay, seeing no further discussion, are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, let's take up item number 6. First question, and maybe I'll ask the county manager, the sale is not complete until the board actually votes on it. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, very good. So what can you tell us about?
I would like to ask Robert Clemens to come to the podium and help us get the discussion started, please.
Okay, excellent.
Good morning, Commissioners. Robert Clemens, County Lands. We followed the statute as to declaring this property surplus and selling it. This is a non-buildable lot. I think if you look at the statute, it says the highest bid, not the highest. I'm trying to remember the exact term Mr. Goodwin used, but it's the highest bid is what is in the statute, and that is why we went with the bidder that had the highest amount of bid. There were 3 bidders. This parcel has 2 property owners on either side. I don't know if y'all can see the maps or not, but this one is in the middle of 2 other lots that are contiguous, and it was a property owner to the east that is contiguous to Mr. Goodwin's client that is the successful bidder. Now, they do have, because of the way the properties abut, the successful bidder will be picking up this additional plus or minus 40 feet of property that has some frontage on a canal, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the title to this property is clear. We made that clear in the bid process that this probably is not a marketable piece of property to begin with because we received it for drainage purposes in general. So,
Mr. Clemens, I don't have the map in front of me, but could you describe, does it sound like somebody's going to have to cross over somebody else's property in order to get to their backyard, or what? I don't understand that.
That's not quite the case. The property owner, the successful bidder, owns 40 feet that is contiguous to and matches up to this subject property. So their ownership will be somewhat of an L shape along the canal that is just north of Carly Drive off of McGregor. This is one of the main outfall canals for the city of Fort Myers. We previously asked the city of Fort Myers if they wanted this property. They had indicated to us that they do not. And we have previously sold off a couple of other of these little, for lack of a better word, nuisance strips that we own along this corridor.
Excellent.
So, but in general, we did follow the statute to the T. The successful bidder will not be crossing the property of Mr. Goodwin's client. So it would, like I said, it'll be an L-shaped piece of property that will wrap around the north boundary of Mr. Goodwin's client.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. Clemens. Mr. County Attorney, would you like to opine on the process here and the comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, the process as outlined by staff was followed in this case and is in compliance with the state statute for the disposal of property. If you would like us to hold further discussions with the affected, well, with the speaker, you could always just postpone this matter and we'll bring it back at a future agenda. But I do not believe that there was anything done here that is not in compliance with the law.
All right, at this time, I'll turn to the board. Commissioners, what questions or motion would you like to make?
I move to delay the item until future so staff can work with the parties involved to explain the situation.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Pendergrass. Do we have a second for that? Second from Commissioner Mann. Do you have any further discussion or questions on that? No? All right, seeing no questions or discussion, do we have any objection to the motion? All right, no objection. That motion carries unanimously.
When it comes back, Mr. Chairman, I would like what you would suggest. I'd like to see the map and better understand how this all came together.
Yeah, I agree. Excellent. Okay, very good. All right, that concludes the consent agenda items. At this time, we'll move to the administrative agenda. And on this item, I actually will be filing Form 8B with the clerk. I have a conflict, so I will abstain from the vote because of my employment status with Florida Gulf Coast University. So I will hand the gavel over to our vice chairman along with a couple comment cards. I'll be right back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try to take good care of your gavel here.
Don't forget to come back.
Mr. County Manager, are you the one I want to recognize at this time?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Pick up item 1.
Commissioners, I have some information that's new in the last 5 minutes. At the appropriate time during the meeting today, if I would request, with your indulgence, a 10-minute break to discuss this information with the County Attorney's Office. There's been a request by both parties involved to delay this item to work on some outstanding issues that exist not between Lee County and either of the parties, but between the other two parties.
You want 10 minutes right now.
Or at the appropriate time,
See
as
if you
it
can work
pleases the
this
board.
out. Well, I don't know which would be a more appropriate time, but I suspect we've got 10 minutes for you guys to work out a recommended settlement beyond what is before us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, the Vice Chair declares a 10-minute recess, and let's make
Thank
it
you,
work.
Commissioners.
Folks, everybody involved.
When you are.
All ready?
Yes, sir.
Well, that was a quick 10 minutes. Thank you very much for that. Okay, back to the, I declare us back in session. Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would respectfully request that this item be deferred until the next County Commission meeting of October 20.
So moved.
Before I take that motion, let me ask the two people who submitted cards. I see Ms. Green is still here and Ms. Montgomery is too as well. Is this okay with you guys? I mean, okay. A head nod will do just so that all the parties involved here have been heard appropriately. So now, motion to delay this until when?
October 20th, next board meeting.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any public on this wants to discuss this beyond the two that I've just recognized? Hearing none, back to the board. Is there objection to the motion? Hearing none, show it passed. Mr. County Manager, take up the next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Would someone invite the chair back? Because this will be so much fun, I'll just take it over.
You're going to have to give the gavel back.
We told him he had to leave Lee County while we were discussing this. He may be in Punta Gorda by now, but we'll see how it works.
I made it just to the county line.
I have guarded it with my very life.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. All right, very good. Let's move to administrative agenda item number 2. Mr. DeGillet, if you'll introduce that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item number 2 is a discussion of merit increase for the county manager and county attorney.
So moved.
What are you moving, Commissioner?
The discussion.
6%. So we have a motion for 6% from Commissioner Manning. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Any discussion, commissioners? Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on administrative agenda item number 2? All right, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to thank the county manager, county attorney for all their work throughout the year and all their staff. The exceptional work your staff provides on both sides. Thank you to the residents of Lee County.
I'd also like to make mention, this has been a very unusual year in a lot of ways. And I think the work that the teams have done has been exemplary. I've certainly learned a lot, so my congratulations, and glad we're on the same team.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Mann.
I am going to grudgingly support this motion, but I want to put these thoughts on the record, and I've made reference to them before in workshops and when we were adopting the budget, when we adopted a 3% increase for all other county employees. This is twice that, and we're doubling the increase at for our highest paid people, while the rest of the folks are getting half this amount. I wish there was some mid-ground to recognize the additional stress and strain this year has put on our top people, but I'm having great difficulty supporting this, though I will, based on the fact that all of us are under great stress this year, everywhere, and this just seems to be a little more than is in fairness to all.
Any further comments then? You know, Commissioner Mann, I will support the motion that's on the floor, but I also agree. It's interesting. It's nothing personal. I think we gave great reviews to both our county manager and our county attorney. Both have performed admirably and wonderfully this year during a horrible, year, a situation that was absolutely no fun and not easy to handle. However, I see the wisdom in when we renegotiate contracts, maybe aligning them again, our contractual employees, both the HECS and the county attorney and county manager, with the whatever raise the staff gets. I think they should get the similar raise as opposed to this negotiated 4 through 6%. I think you're right, it would be more fair. So I'll put that thought on the record too, because we have to talk in the sunshine. Can't talk about these things behind the scenes. So, all right, very good. If there's no further comments, then I'll go ahead and call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Thank you to both for the wonderful work you did this year.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'd just like to say thank you. It has been, my very high honor to serve this board and the citizens of Lee County for all these years. And just, Lee County's home, been very, very good to my family and so thank you.
Mr. Chairman, once again, I find myself going second to the county manager.
Seniority.
Without restating his comments, certainly echoed by myself, it has been an honor. It's hard to believe it'll be 7 years at the end of this month already. But we've got a great thing working here in Lee County, and that's because of the direction of the board. I'm proud to be part of this team. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you both. All right, very good. All right, let's move to the next item. This will be our public hearing agenda. And public hearing number 1, I'd like to ask the County Attorney's Office to introduce that item.
Good morning, Commissioners. Glad to be in front of you again. For the record, Amanda Swindle with the County Attorney's Office. I have your first public hearing. This public hearing is to adopt an ordinance to modify the boundaries of the Esplanade Lake Club Community Development District. I have reviewed the application materials as well as the affidavit, and they meet the statutory requirements for approval, and staff does recommend that you approve. If you have any questions, staff is available, and I believe representatives for the applicant are here as well.
Very good.
One quick question.
Commissioner Mann, you're recognized.
Does this work like everything else? We're expanding the boundaries, I presume, or reducing them?
We are it's a reduction in certain areas and an expansion in others, but
and the
overall,
people affected have to vote 50% plus one like other MSBUs?
it has been approved by the affected properties, yes.
Thank you.
I'll move the item.
So we have a motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass and a second from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any discussion on that? Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on the first public hearing related to the Esplanade CDD? And when you get up here, just state your name for the record, okay?
Thank you. Jared Earlywine with Hopping Green and Sam's here on behalf of the district. I don't have any comments, but would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good. Thank you very much. Any questions at all? Seeing none, we'll move forward then. Thank you. And seeing no further public comments, then I'll close public comment. Any further discussion, commissioners, on this?
I want to just clarify,
Commissioner May?
what law firm were you from? Hopping Green and Sam's?
That's correct.
Out of Tallahassee? Welcome to Lee County.
There you go. All right. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. Please introduce item number 2, Mr. County Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 2 is a request to conduct a public hearing and adopt certain amendments to Ordinance 18-12, specifically Section 9-6, pertaining to requirements for dogs in county parks. Commissioners, I have previously furnished your clerk with proof of publication for the conduct of this public hearing. You are authorized to proceed, and I would point out that the requested modifications are not breed-specific.
Very good. Do we have any questions for our County Attorney's Office, Commissioners? No? Do we have anybody here who would like to speak in public comment related to the public hearing on the dogs in county parks? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass, second from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any further discussion on this item? Commissioner Sandelli?
You know, I visited the park that initiated this, looked at it. I think the staff has done a good job of not only looking at the current facility, but also matching it up with other facilities that for best practices. So I thank them for their work.
Very good. And cute pictures, too.
Yeah.
Did you get a dog?
Puppy pictures.
Did you get a dog?
I got one already.
All right, very good. Seeing no further discussion, then I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously. And then, Mr. County Attorney, please introduce item number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 3 is your third and final public hearing for today. I have previously furnished your clerk with the proof of publication in this matter. You are authorized to proceed, and this is a request by the residents to create the Galt Island O&M MSBU.
Very good. Do we have any questions for our County Attorney's Office or our staff? Okay, seeing none, I'll move to public comment. I have one card from Gary Spear. Mr. Spear, if you'll come forward to the podium and share your comments, however you're comfortable.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm here as an individual homeowner. This MSBU is unnecessary. Road O&M responsibility is already defined in recorded documents. While you have a petition supposedly from the residents, it's the residents of one community. What the county has failed to recognize through this entire process is this is not one, but 2 separate communities, distinct and 2 separate homeowners associations, each with its own rights and responsibilities. First, there's Galt Island Avenue Property Rights Groups, the actual petitioner, consisting of 37 lots along the south side of Galt Island Avenue. They physically own the tracts of land containing the road and the rights-of-way. Their recorded declarations of restrictions from 1980 and 2000 specifically fix responsibility on its owners for the O&M, road maintenance, and rights-of-way landscaping. The other community, Galt Island Subdivision HOA of 15 lots physically on Galt Island, has a deeded easement, unrestricted and unqualified ingress and egress along Galt Island Avenue. County representatives met with representatives of the property rights group multiple times to discuss this specific MSBU, its scope and its budget, but no island representatives were ever included. On March 20th, the county's legal advisor confirmed the recorded declarations documenting the property rights group responsibility for road and common area maintenance, and opined that, I quote, an MSBU for road maintenance, landscaping, and signage should not be pursued. That same day, the county MSTBU coordinator directed the property rights group to stop petitioning, canceling the petition. Yet here we are. You have 27 respondents that favored this action. However, all 27 are from the Property Rights Group. You have no favorable responses from the island residents. Of note, 18 of those responses were executed after the county's cancellation date. Although there's no legal requirement, the consensus among island residents would be to support any one-time capital improvement project of Galt Island Avenue, as was the case in 2004 and 2009 for road resurfacing. However, there is no desire to participate in the normal O&M landscaping, which are clearly documented responsibility of the 37 owners.
Very good. Mr. Spear, thank you for your comments. That's all the time we have for today's public hearing, and we have to be fair. So I'll go ahead. I know Commissioner Manning looks like has a question for our county attorney. I assume we'll have plenty of discussion on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, as such, this should not be approved in its current form.
Excellent. Thank you for your comments this morning. All right. Do we have anybody else who wishes to speak in public comment on this item? We'll close public comment, and we'll move to Commissioner Manning. You have a question?
I want the county attorney to opine on this matter, please.
Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Jacob. I have reviewed the request, and I was part of the discussion a few months ago with regards to this case. The advice provided by one of our staff is based on the documentation, that it wasn't necessary. We don't deal with necessary. As staff correctly indicated, the petition met the county's requirements to proceed. It went forward after the email from our office was sent out in error. At this point, as Mr. Spear indicated, there are two competing groups. Based on the emails and the dialogue back and forth, it is not as cut and dry as far as who's responsible for paying for what between the two groups. From our standpoint, their individual requirements and their deed restrictions are not relevant to whether or not the petition meets the county's regulations and whether it should move forward. At this time, there has been 27 votes in support of the request, and as you guys are aware, throughout these proceedings, when we have MSBUs come up, there's always groups or individuals who do not wish for the thing to be created. However, as it sits today, it meets the requirements of your administrative code to proceed. If you would like for us to go into the details of who all received letters and notice, we can provide that, but staff has indicated that every member within the assessment received a petition and received letter and notification of this request.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Manning. Very good.
Mr. Chairman, I'm having heard the gentleman's comments. I'm uncomfortable moving forward on this because it's just kind of created more questions for me that we haven't been able to, in a brief response, help me understand it better. It's a unique situation. Usually our MSBUs, they're all packaged together and easy to figure out with 50% plus one that calls for that. I'm not going to be able to support this motion without better understanding of how we got to this point. I don't know where I want to go with this, but those are my thoughts.
Very good. Commissioner Sandelli?
What is unique about this is these are neighbors that are having a disagreement.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to see neighbors come together for whatever the conclusion is. I don't think there's any immediate action that has to happen relative to the items of discussing the road and so on and so forth. And so, as Commissioner Mann said, I would move to continue and readdress this so we get some better information and make sure that everybody in this community has a voice if we have to poll them again.
Second.
Okay, so the motion to continue the item is from Commissioner Sandelli. The second is from Commissioner Manning. Mr. County Attorney, can you opine here?
Mr. Chairman, if we could, we would respectfully request that the matter be considered or postponed to a date and time certain so that we do not have to go through the entire re-advertising process. So with that, we would respectfully request the matter be continued until 9:30 a.m. October 20th.
Seconder agrees.
Okay, so you amend your motion to include that date certain?
Yes.
Okay, and the seconder agrees as well. So we have the motion to continue to the date certain as outlined by our county attorney. Can you say that date one more time?
October 20th.
October 20th, 9:30
9:30 a.m.
Okay, great. And We've already had public comment on this. Any further discussion on the motion, Commissioner Pendergrass?
So I support the motion to delay to October 20th. My question is, staff knows what direction the board was given here, because this was petitioned by the residents. They went through the MSTU process. They voted with the needed numbers per statute. So what are we asking staff to come back with about the 20th?
Great question.
Frankly, I don't know, because I don't know whether the gentleman that spoke is the only one on this side. And I don't understand how there are two separate parcels here. If this comes back with the same recommendation, I just want it clarified as to why that seems to be the right and proper thing to do. And if there are other factors that did not find their way to the rostrum this morning, I want to know those.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, Mr. County Manager.
Commissioners, with your permission, we'll, between now and October 20th, we'll check with each of your offices to see if you'd like a briefing, more complete briefing on this item, so that you'll be better prepared on the 20th to make a decision.
Yeah, if county lands can prepare the information about what's included, what's not included, based upon the deed restrictions, landscaping is already part of the deed restrictions, so it's not part of this. If they just clarify all that, I think it would help maybe the decision makers.
Yes, sir. We'll work with the county attorney's office to make sure we've got all that for you.
Very good. Commissioner?
Yeah, I think timing's been the question. I mean, this has been going on for a while, but it really just came to fruition yesterday or the day before, and I was not able to pull together enough of the information to be comfortable to vote. So.
Very good. All right, any further comments before we vote on the motion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. Are there any objections? No objections. That motion carries unanimously, and we'll look forward to seeing that back on the 20th. Okay, at this time, we have one walk-on item today. Mr. County Manager, you are recognized to present that item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, this morning we're asking you to authorize additional LeeCARES programs and actions for the COVID-19 response, and would like for Mr. Salyer to present the item for your consideration, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Glenn Salyer, County Manager's Office. As part of this item, we'd like to give you a brief update on the LeeCARES program, as we often do during these meetings. So just start by showing you the call volume that we've experienced to date. Staff has fielded over 66,000 calls thus far. The call center is winding down, as you know. It has a skeletal crew there now. So this number won't go much higher than that, but it's been significant, as you can see thus far. Individual assistance rounds 1 and 2, we've dispersed approximately $20 million thus far. We think that once round 2 is fully processed, this will probably be about $25 million in total. The PPE distribution has gone well, and we've just crossed the 7 million items distributed mark, a significant milestone. The most recent business round of PPE concluded last week. We did that at 3 areas throughout the county, east, north, and south. Current public distribution is still underway, primarily through our partners, the United Way and Goodwill. This was the first round of business assistance. As you can see, more than 1,200 companies did receive that help. And then we went into the second round, which was rehire assistance, and thus far more than 300 jobs have essentially been created through that program. The Human Services Grant Program that you recently authorized, of course, has just gotten underway. You did allocate $10 million for that program. We have 18 applications complete and submitted thus far, with many more currently in progress. And on the child care front, you can see we've committed more than $2 million for scholarships to needy families, and we have helped 87 different organizations sanitize more than 100 facilities, and that's from June through the end of the calendar year. Now moving into the food security piece, you'll remember we granted food banks money earlier in the year, and food pantries as well. The food banks, we've distributed almost $1.5 million thus far. We are going to be asking for additional funding there, which you will see in just a moment. And this is just a snapshot of where we are on disbursements. I know it's a little small to read, but it shows us approaching the $50 million mark. I just want to note that we have $6 million in additional approvals that are not reflected here because they haven't yet been dispersed. We still have municipal reimbursements that are being submitted, so there are significant large items still outstanding. That $48 million number is just what was actually dispersed as of the end of September. And that takes us to the new proposals, Commissioners. What we're asking for today is to increase the size of the grants to the 3 food banks, as well as increase the dollar amount allocated to child care scholarships being administered by the United Way. The child care scholarships would go from a maximum of $3 million to $3.6 million. The reason for that increase is that we have recently added after-school programs that are provided by the Lee County School District. So we're going to see some increased demand there. On the food banks, we're asking for an additional $1.7 million to be added to the grants that they've already received, and that will put total food security grants at well over $4 million in total. And there I would just want to add that food pantries, although we gave them earlier grants, are now also eligible for the current Human Services grant that we spoke about just a minute ago. And then the second part of the request is to open new rounds of utilities payment assistance. What we would propose here is 3 separate rounds, one for October, one for November, and one essentially for the first part of December. We would use each one of the, or take each one of those separately, I should say, so that a household impacted by COVID-19 could potentially get 3 more cycles of utility bills paid on their behalf. And then finally, we're asking for direction to staff to explore a potential landlord assistance and eviction prevention program. As you're probably aware, the Center for Disease Control has instituted an eviction moratorium that is currently scheduled to expire on December 31st. In anticipation of that happening and perhaps Congress extending the deadline for use of these funds, we would be putting together a program that would pay a percentage of back rent due in return for the landlord forgiving the balance of that rent and foregoing any eviction proceedings against these renters. So we'd like to go ahead and put that together, and you would be able to pull the trigger then on that program if it comes to pass that we need it. That summarizes the requests for today. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that or where we stand to date.
Very good. What questions do we have for our staff? Anything? No?
You need a motion for the request?
Yes, please.
I'll move the item request.
Second.
Okay, so motion for approval from Commissioner Pendergrass for the walk-on item as outlined by Mr. Sire, and the second is from Commissioner Manning. Let me go ahead and call for public comment on this then. Does anybody wish to speak in public comment on this item? All right, come forward. And Jasmine, you know the routine, 3 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jasmine Miller, JD. I have a question to you. The Human Service $10 million that was given to them, I'd like to see if it's possible for the homeless advocates and the friends to approach you and seek a grant from this $10 million. And what we want to do is to build small houses for the homeless. And they are being impacted by the virus. We know that when you force them to go to the triage, they group up, and that's where they're infected. And I think you're casting them out from the beautiful Centennial Park as we're speaking. So it's time we do something to help them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments on the walk-on item? Come on forward, Mr. Schottmiller. Morning.
Good morning. As Jasmine has stated, there is occupying the park advocates to, because where are the people going to go unless there's a place? We need to address the need of getting some type of temporary and permanent housing. Now, people got limited incomes, so we need to address it. I know that the people are saying they're building affordable housing and that, but the thing is, where are people going to go now? You're closing down the park. You're remodeling it. Okay, we need a place for people to go. People need to be treated human. You got veterans down there. You got people with disabilities. You even got people with children living in cars. Okay, so we need to address it.
If I may just interrupt real quick. So we're voting on specifically this program right now. If for like general comments not related to the item we're going to vote on, that's coming up in just a minute, and I know you've got your card in for that.
Okay.
On this utilities program, the eviction program, the food bank program, do you like that? Is that something you want us to vote?
I think the food bank should get money because people got to eat. That's a human need, but they also have to be housed. So we need to work together. That's what I'm saying. So Mark had approached me when I came in that the human service guy, Roger, to meet with him on some things. So I'm hoping that we can all work together with this human need because people don't need to be sick, dying, or anything. They need a place to go. So let's all work together. Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. Okay, very good. Any further comments on the motion that's on the floor? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Any discussion, commissioners? Commissioner
I'd like to
Pendergrass.
point out in Glenn's presentation, we talked about the call service and everything. I'd like to recognize John Talmadge in the balcony there with Tatum and all the workers from the LeeCARES program. So those are the ones taking care of all those phone calls and those processing those applications. So thank you. Great job to all of you.
Very good. Good job, y'all. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just as a tag on to that, I want to commend Glenn and all the good folks that have worked so hard on this, where this program was thrust on us, and there was so much to learn and so much to assess, and then to make the recommendations. It was an enormous task. Now, these guys have already got a dozen ping pong balls bouncing in the air, and somebody throws a bowling ball in this, and they were able to deal with the bowling ball and keep all the ping pong balls moving at the same time. So y'all have done a superb job, and Cecil, I join you in saying thank you. I know we all feel the same way.
Thank you very much. All right. Before we vote on the motion, any further comments? Commissioner
Just one final
Sandella?
comment. I think the challenge has been this part year is balance between what the healthcare professionals were telling us and what we're trying to do on the economic side, and that was never easy to come. So I think the expediency in which the team moved in conjunction with the other issues that were going on got help to people as quickly as I think possible, probably more so. So congratulations.
Excellent. Excellent. The only question I want to ask real quickly, and Mr. County Manager, I know you can address this, is just, can you talk just for a moment briefly about the coordination with the cities? So these programs are eligible for folks who live within the borders of Lee County, regardless of if they're in a city or in the unincorporated part of Lee County. I've noticed some cities are starting, they start their own little programs here and there that do similar activities. Do you all coordinate back with the cities to let them know what's available in the county so that they're not maybe duplicating efforts?
Commissioner, thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, the short answer is yes, we do. But I'm going to ask Mark Mora in just a moment to give you an update on the situation in Centennial Park and efforts that have been made, and I think it'll become clear that the coordinating effort is underway.
Okay, excellent, very good. All right, if there's no further questions then or comments, we'll go ahead and vote on the motion that's on the floor. Are there any objections? No objections, that motion carries unanimously. Very good. So the walk-on item is taken care of. We had no carryover items. We'll move through commissioner items and committee appointments. Do you have any commissioner items, Commissioner Mann?
Oh, just another hats off to, in this case, Mark Mora and your team. We got a note yesterday, I guess some of you all got it this morning, from Mr. Mora referencing the Centennial Park closing and the necessary steps, because that seems to be a homeless hangout, the general area. And when we shut that down and the facilities that are part of it, they have looked way ahead and anticipated the need for those citizens. And are taking steps in advance to make certain that they're not just forgotten and abandoned while the facilities they depended on were being refreshed. Our staff has heard this commission. We have spoken more loudly this year than ever before about the plight of the homeless. And the folks are back here again, and we appreciate y'all's continued monitoring of what's going on here. But you've picked up on what I sense as a real priority of this commission, and I'm just profoundly grateful for your foresight and your continual service here. Thank you.
Any items, Commissioner Manning? I have no items. Commissioner Pendergrass?
No items, committee appointments.
All right. Any items, Commissioner Sandelli? All right. Let's move on to committee appointments. Commissioner Mann, any?
I do have three. Richard Foster to the River Forest Street Lighting Unit, Butch McGovern to the Construction Licensing Advisory Committee, and Darrell Forgey to the Land Development Code Advisory Committee.
Moved.
Second. So the motion is from Commissioner Mann, and the second is from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Manning?
I have two reappointments. The first is Jamu Lambert, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, to the Community Action Agency Neighborhood District Committee, and a reappointment of Sharon Murphy to the District 8 Health Planning Council.
Very good. All right, so we have a motion from Commissioner Manning. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second from Commissioner Pendergrass. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. I have three reappointments, and I'll need a motion and a second on this. I'd like to reappoint Durward Hussey Jr. to the Construction Licensing Committee, Benjamin Fletcher to the Hispanic Affairs Committee, and Mario Juarez to the Hispanic Affairs Committee.
So moved.
Motions from Commissioner Manning.
Second.
Seconds from Commissioner Mann. Do we have any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Pendergrass?
I have three. I have a new appointment for Anesia Exis for the Historical Preservation, a reappointment of Robert Goddick at Construction Licensing, and Roland Kottkamp for Whiskey Creek Club Estates.
Very good. Motions from Commissioner Pendergrass, the seconds from Commissioner Manning. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. And Commissioner Sandelli?
Yes, I have four reappointments. Alex Lambros to the Town and River Improvement District, Giovanni Trepazzi for the Town and River Improvement District, Carrie Leifert for the Community Action Agency Neighborhood District, and William Prozzi for the Land Development Code.
Very good. Motions from Commissioner Sandelli and the seconds from Commissioner Manning. Any discussion? Any objection? No objection. That motion carries unanimously. All right, very good. We now move to county manager items. Mr. DeGilet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of items for you today, please. Would like to start with an update on the Lee County operations and the schedule for reopening some of our buildings that are currently closed as a result of the COVID crisis. So I would like to ask Mr. Harner to walk us through the plan.
Thank you, Roger. Good morning, Commissioners. As of 10 a.m. today, we will be opening the 5 community libraries. That goes in conjunction with the already previously opened regional and mid-sized libraries. We will also open all outdoor reading gardens, as well as which are in available locations, as well as all talking book library lobby. The only thing that's going to affect it won't cause a problem, as in people being able to visit our libraries, but we will be having early voting on October 19th through the 31st. The following libraries: Cape Coral, East County, and Northwest. And on Election Day on November 3rd, it'll affect, or we'll be having dual programming: Cape Coral, East County Library, Lakes, North Fort Myers, Northwest, and South County. For Parks and Recreation, we'll be opening all facilities, and that includes all programming. We will require a plan, much like we did with the youth leagues, and any outdoor activity, that they need to provide a safety plan that goes and coincides with the CDC guidelines. But any programming indoors will be allowed at our facilities. Again, we will have elections that we'll have to deal with at the same time of these reopenings, which will be the following centers. For early voting will be Estero Rec Center, North Fort Myers, and Veterans Rec Centers. Election Day, which is again November 3rd, will be Alva Community Center, Boca Grande Community Center, Estero Community Center, Carl Drews, North Fort Myers Rec Center, and Veterans and Waxahachie Rec Centers. We began in-person bid openings and vendor selections on June 3rd for procurement. And for transit, we will have all fixed route bus routes open and operating on October 11th.
So once these changes are all put into effect, are we back to 100% then, normal operations?
We will be open. All the programs that we previously were closed will be reopened to the public. There will be some limitations based on their safety plans that they design. Other than that, we will be open. All activities will be available to the community.
Commissioner, the one caveat to all of that, our public-facing counters and the community development lobby is still under renovation construction. And so once that's complete, then those lobby activities will resume, the normal, normal daily activity. And also,
Leeway will be open October 9th.
Okay, very good. All right, and commissioners, any questions on that update? Commissioner Sandelli.
Specific to the rec centers, those programs will be opening. They have to provide a plan for protocols and so on and so forth. Is there any other stipulations needed for those programs to open?
No, we have plans that we will provide to anyone that is required to do a plan, because we have a ton of those already. As long as they follow the CDC guidelines and are reviewed by our staff, they're good to go.
Great, thank you.
Commissioners, if this is not yet been posted on our website, it will be.
Excellent.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Any further questions on that? All right, Mr. DeGillet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As mentioned earlier, I would like to ask Mark Mora to talk with you for just a moment about specifically the homeless issue that we're dealing with Centennial Park being closed by the City of Fort Myers for a renovation. Mark.
Thank you, Mr. DeGillet. Good morning, Commissioners. The closure of the park obviously had an impact on the homeless encamped there and has garnered media attention. We were aware that the park was going to close, been working closely with the City of Fort Myers to work on a plan to mitigate some of the outcomes. We didn't receive notice until last week when they were definitively going to close the park, and at that time we took some immediate actions, and I'd like to just update you on some of the things that staff did in the park and continually to do today.
Okay, Commissioner Pendergrass has a question real quick.
I just want to, so somebody aware for transparency, this park enhancement has been in the works of the City of Fort Myers for over 3 years as part of their downtown redevelopment, and they've had numerous public meetings, workshops on this, so it's not a surprise to a lot of people. I know it was even advertised on signage downtown for months, and mostly people, I was talking to some people down there yesterday, they weren't even at the park until recently this occurred. Some people were actually brought there from the rescue missions, some other places, so these people were not living in the park prior to this closure, just for the record. So people were brought in to place. They weren't being allowed to live there before this happened up to a week ago, so they've been brought in to try to make a statement if somebody knows for transparency. Some were actually brought in from the rescue mission, and as far as Sarasota, transported down here and provide food and clothing to be there. So hopefully the city will continue to investigate that, because it's not a county park, so I know the city is looking at that from different aspects.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
So immediately we took some action when we were informed when the park was indeed going to be closed and the fencing was going up. I just want to stress that Centennial Park is an ongoing outreach target for our human services staff. They have been regularly going to the park knowing that there was some congregation there, so it is amongst the list of places that they visit often. But I did want to share with you some of the actions that we took. There was some feeding going on that was offered by a nonprofit, the name of Helping Hands. We helped assist them find another location to do their feeding. So they are now working off of a local church's property to do those weekly feedings. I believe they do 3 or 4 feedings per week. We conducted ongoing weekly homeless outreach activities in Centennial Park from the initial communication from the City of Fort Myers, which Mr. Harner and I had met with the city manager about a month ago and understood that they were moving forward with this closure. We have done some scheduled targeted homeless outreach over this past weekend, understanding that the park was going to indeed close on Monday. The purpose of the reach out was to share with the homeless the resources and programs that were available. During that outreach effort, 25 homeless were encountered in the park. We offered sheltering to all of them at the Bob Janes Triage Center. We only had 2 folks that accepted that offer. Those 2 folks were picked up by Bob Janes Triage staff and transported to the center. I'd like to just mention that the Bob Janes Triage Center has been one of the clients from the nonprofit LeeCARES program. We've offered some cleaning there. We've done some deep cleaning to ensure that it was disinfected and sanitized, and that's something that we have an ongoing offer to them whenever they have the need and desire. We do offer that cleaning for them using the LeeCARES funding. Currently, the Salvation Army, which is a rapid rehousing partner, is in the process of placing roughly 10 individuals from the park into housing, permanent housing, over the next couple of weeks. We also scheduled homeless outreach activities in the downtown library, knowing that's another area that homeless like to congregate, again, for the purposes of informing the homeless of available resources and programs. And lastly, we've alerted all of our nonprofit partners, those that are members of the continuum of care, particularly Salvation Army, that there's a potential increase in homeless services need to the closure of the park. So they're all aware of what's going on. It's in the media, but we've also prompted them to step up services and be available whenever needed. Human and Veteran Services obviously is coordinating with the City of Fort Myers, city's police department, the Homeless Coalition, and other nonprofit partners, and also with advocates. I know Ms. Miller and Mr. Schottmeiler are here today. We have ongoing dialogue and conversations with them. So we're always open to meeting and listening to their concerns and discover ways that we could help them in their process. Mr. DeJoly, if you don't mind, I'd like to just give an update on some of the other outreach efforts that we have in planning. We have mentioned before, and I believe we'll be talking more about it on our October 20th workshop, some really exciting things that we're doing that we know that will have a big impact on the homeless situation. The Housing Outreach Treatment Team, the HOT team we call it, is still working towards implementation. We've been working with every law enforcement agency within the county. Lee County Sheriff's Office has been a big partner in that effort. What that group will be doing is actually bridging the system gaps and connecting persons experiencing unsheltered homeless to permanent housing. But I think more importantly, it's the partnering with mental and behavioral health professionals, so connecting them to the clinical services that they really, truly need. Another really exciting happening is the Homeless Resource Center, and that's a partnership with the county and the Salvation Army and several other nonprofit entities. That's going to be a drop-in facility where people that are experiencing homeless can access services such as food, clothing, charging stations, laundry services, restrooms, showers, and also connect them to housing and behavioral health services. Those are those basic needs we can continue to talk about, and the folks in Centennial Park, obviously, those are the things that they'll be seeking. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit about the rapid rehousing program. We would like it to be a lot more rapid than it currently is, and this is basically a program where we're placing folks in permanent housing, providing them rental assistance, and more importantly, case management and wraparound services. So we're really excited that we've added some additional capacity in our Department of Human Services, as well as brought on additional vendors to help us engage in that rapid rehousing. One of the keys there is actually identifying capacity to house the homeless. Right now, our goal is to house over 350 individuals who are experiencing homeless. We have about 250 housing units available for the program. We're looking to increase that by 100 over the next month or two.
Excellent. Very good.
Commissioners, and just Mr. Moore mentioned it briefly, but just a reminder that on October 20th, we have a workshop in the afternoon with the Board of County Commissioners and Sheriff Carmine Marcino to discuss the issue of homelessness and panhandling and some of the other challenges.
Excellent. What questions do we have, Commissioners? Any? For Commissioner Sandell?
Just a comment. It's been, and congratulations to Mark and the team and to the folks that have weighed in on this. As we looked at this problem, we talked about homeless. It's not a one-size-fits-all, I think, as we all know. There are people that choose, for whatever reason, to be homeless. There is another group that have other issues that have to be dealt with separately. And then you have some that are, homeless for maybe perhaps the first time. So the complexity of this and trying to address each of those in the proper way is a challenge, but the process is never fast enough, but I think we're moving in the right direction. Mark, thank you for your work and your team.
Thank you, Mark.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Just like Commissioner Sindelli said, there's always a need, and will always be needs. The main thing is we're providing assistance, and I think, Mark, you touched on, you said out of 25 people that approached, only 2 wanted assistance. The other 23, what was their cause? What were they were wanting to stay there, did not want to find resources and homes? I think what I've been hearing from other people has been going out there that when offered assistance, they refused assistance. They just want to be there.
I do know that programs like Bob Jane's Triage Center has rules and expectations of folks that go into the center, and some folks are not prepared to go into that shelter and abide by some of the rules that are in place. I'm not exactly sure. Everybody has an individual need and desire for housing. I can't characterize all the other 23 and what their demands were, but it's evident to us that the Bob Janes Triage Center wasn't the right fit for them. We'll continue to work on other opportunities, and I think the rapid rehousing program is that solution. I know a lot of folks want to talk about temporary sheltering, but the concept of housing first is a successful concept that we see implemented across the country. It's getting folks into permanent housing rather than sheltering, and then provide them that wraparound service in order to make them self-sufficient so that they're successful. As we do research across the country, that seems to be the most successful program, and we're trying to emulate that best practice here in Lee County.
Would the SCDOLC dollars fund that along with other funds, or is other grant money for that funding?
Yeah, absolutely. If it is COVID related, we're using some of the HUD granted money for that purpose. And then we get allocations from CDBG, ESG that can come from HUD that we use typically for these type of programs.
And back to the needs and assessments and resources, I think some of that was determined yesterday. Some of them did when I go back to the rescue mission because hours, Salvation Army, the limit of no alcohol on premises, the hours of bedtime and all that stuff, people don't want to have to follow the rules. And I think that's the reason why sometimes they did not comply with that. So, okay, thank you.
Excellent. All right, any further questions? And Mr. DeGilet, does that conclude the county manager update, or?
Yes, sir, with the exception, just a reminder that at 1:30 this afternoon, we have a workshop with you to discuss the update of the Basin Management Action Plan.
Okay, you jumped ahead to workshop update. I'll get that. All right, very good. Mr. County Attorney, do you have any items?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have the 29th extension of the state of local emergency.
So moved.
All right, motion from Commissioner Mann, second from Commissioner Manning. Do we have any discussion on that?
Can't move fast enough for these guys.
All right, anybody wish to speak in public comment on extending the state of local emergency related to COVID-19? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Any further comments, commissioners, before we vote? All right, any objections to the motion? All right, seeing none, motion carries unanimously. Anything else, Mr. County Attorney?
No, sir. Thank you.
Very good. All right, time now for public presentation of matters by citizens. Mr. Schottmiller, we've got your card here. And does anybody else wish to speak this morning too? If you just raise your hand. Okay, so we'll go Mr. Schottmiller, we'll go with the blue shirt, and then we'll go Jasmine, okay? Morning, sir.
Morning. I and Jasmine will meet with you, Mark, right after. There is a need for temporary and permanent. Like yes, there are rules, and a lot of them don't want to go by the rules. That's why we have police officers. But there needs to be a place where people go that is safe, a humanity park. Not the Park Centennial, but a place where you have water and the police can patrol, and you leave contributions. It shouldn't be all free, and then money goes into aiding the people that do feed other people, like we were talking about. You guys are connected with the nonprofits that are feeding people, Helping Hands, Come As You Are Ministries, Tanya and Lions Park. I'll be helping them later today. I'll be helping Fernando they're in the east part of Fort Myers. So we need all to work together, but we need something now for everybody until they can be processed into the mental health, into places where they're safe. But you need the basic needs of a bathroom. We don't need people stepping in human feces or anything like that. And so let's all work together, okay? Jasmine has stuff to say, and the money that is available, she started help get a nonprofit going, so we need to put that where it's locked in. So when things happen in life, there is a place for temporary to go, and we can all work together as a community and as a nation and as a world. So we're a tourist place. People will respect us around the world then. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, let's go with, and then Jasmine, you're right after. Morning.
Morning. My name is Mark Washburn. I'm the citizen who won the bid for Consent number 6. I understand the other party had a chance to speak, and I took time off from work to be here to speak, so I just didn't get my chance at the moment, so I want to get my chance now. The other party seemed to misrepresent some of those facts. If you step out the back door, you don't step into the county-owned property. That would be a violation of easements and everything else, and setbacks. There is no access easement to that. My property butts right up against it. It is easy for me to access, just as it is for them. They're saying they have a greater use for that property. The only use they have is that they got into a bad investment, in my opinion. They're trying to increase the size of their property to turn around that investment. My use is for my family. I live there. From the moment I moved into that house, I've tried to purchase that property in January of 2019, before the other party even owned that property. No one lives in the other party's house. It's vacant. They've been trying to sell it, and they're having trouble selling it. They're trying to increase the size of the lot for their benefit, for their money. I'm trying to do it for the benefit of my family. So I just wanted to make sure that was said. All right?
Okay. And that item was deferred and continued, so you'll have an opportunity to come speak again at that point as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Ms. Miller?
Once again, my name is Jasmine Miller, JD. I would like to address Mr. Mora. Are we going to be able to see a copy of what you read today? Can we meet to see it? We need to look it over. I know you're doing a fine job, but as I always told you, the only person who can help the homeless are the homeless themselves. You cannot. You need to get out of it and let us tell you what to do. Now, I will tell you the reason why they don't want to go to triage. When they go to the triage, they're infected by the virus or with the virus. Do you know how many of them were infected in triage? Do you, all of you gentlemen, fine, honorable gentlemen of this land, do you know how many? Do you know that the triage was closed down because the virus was in the walls of the triage? Did you know that? So tell me, you think my fellow homeless nation brothers and sisters are stupid and we are not mental and we don't need any behavioral help? Because from the day we were born, from Adam and Eve, we all were mentally ill. Adam and Eve became mentally ill when they ate the fruit in the Garden of Eden.
Please don't address it. Please address it.
Yeah, I'm addressing all of you, yes. We're all mentally and behaviorally challenged. Do not address the homeless as the only group that are. All of you are. That's why you cannot solve the problems. They do not want to go to the triage because they're infected with the virus. And going to the triage, you guys are forcing them to get infected. So then I would like an emergency meeting with Mr. Mora, which I respect Mr. Mora because he's a human being and I admire him. And maybe the homeless people can work together with Mr. Mora, educating him and sending him back to tell you how to help the homeless. This is something serious. And I'm telling you now, I'm going to put you all on notice. This is going to turn into a court battle. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Ms. Miller, I noticed you seem to make it here to every meeting on time, without fail. You could probably make it to work every day on time, without fail, and solve a lot of your own problems. All right. Yeah. Very good. All right, your time is over. Thank you. All right, let's move on to, did anybody else want to speak in public comment? Mr. Ballard, come on forward.
Yes, Commissioners, you've heard from me before about North Fort Myers homeless. Me and Mr. Moore have worked together. On the 20th, you're going to probably see a good contingent from North Fort Myers that morning. I know we can't speak in the workshop, so we will be here that morning. Part of the other big problem in North Fort Myers, there's no place for the homeless to go. And me and Mark talked about that. If you're homeless, really homeless, and don't have transportation, you can't get across the river to the Salvation Army. You can't get over to the center that's on 82. So part of the big issue in North Fort Myers is trying to find a location where we could actually maybe funnel these. Now, The other part of it is, myself and Captain Joe Moore from the Sheriff's Department, we rode around numerous times and have talked to some of the panhandlers. I don't think all the panhandlers are homeless. I think they found out that they can get out in the intersections. Mr. Mann, you made mention of this. They can get out in the intersections and make more money panhandling in the intersections than they can make working at a job. So a lot of them, you could say, hey, I'll give you a place to live and I'll give you X amount. Oh, no, I don't like that. So part of the issue is they bring it on themselves. And I'm not saying that about all of them, but I know of a selected individual in North Fort Myers. It don't make a difference what we do for him. He's going to panhandle until, i.e., we find a law that's going to stop him from doing that. So we'll see y'all on the 20th.
Thanks, Mr. Ballard. All right, any further questions or comments? Okay. Ma'am, we only allow one time. I'm sorry. All right, very good.
Chairman, if you...
We'll get a chance to talk after the meeting. I know you got your moment with Mr. Morrow. We don't take announcements. Okay, very good. I'll close public comment at this time. Commissioners?
Chairman, on Danny's comments about the panhandling, there's already a county current ordinance countywide for panhandling in Lee County that can be enforced by Lee County Sheriff's Department. So there's already a law in the books for that. Thank you.
Very good. A workshop update, Mr. DeGillet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At 1:30 this afternoon, we will be presenting to you an update on the Basin Management Action Plan.
Very good. And anybody here to speak on the workshop update related to the Basin Management Action Plan? Okay, we'll close that. All right, I see no further business before us, so we are adjourned until 1:30.